A 69-year-old man came to me last year. No smoking, no family history of heart disease. He ate what he thought was healthy food every single day, but his arteries looked like those of a man 20 years older. Inflamed, stiff, worn down than a way I usually see in people who spent decades making very different choices. We talked for a long time, and the pattern we found wasn't in his genes. It wasn't his stress levels. It wasn't his weight. It was in how he reheated his dinner every single night. I'm Dr. Wayne Fredrick. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon, and I've spent over 30 years operating on hearts. What I'm about to share, most doctors won't bring it up at your annual checkup, but after 60, it matters more than you think. There are 5 common foods that become genuinely dangerous when reheated. Not just hard on digestion, dangerous. They trigger a chain reaction inside your body that quietly damages your arteries and raises your risk of serious illness at the same time. Stay with me because by the end of this, you'll never look at your leftovers the same way again. Your body after 60 is playing a different game. Here's what I want you to understand before we get into the 5 foods. When you were in your 30s or 40s, your body had a remarkable ability to neutralize damage. Free radicals, low-grade toxins, minor inflammation. Your cells handled it quietly and efficiently. You didn't feel it. You didn't need to think about it. After 60, that system slows down. Your liver processes toxins more slowly, your immune response becomes less precise, your arterial walls get thinner and less elastic, and your DNA repair mechanisms become less reliable. Does that mean you're fragile? Absolutely not. But the margin for error gets smaller. Things harmless at 40 are not harmless at 65. This is where inflammation comes in. Inflammation is not your enemy. In the short term, it's how your body heals. You cut your finger, inflammation cleans the wound. You catch a virus, inflammation fights it off. That's normal. That's healthy. The problem is chronic inflammation. Low level, slow burning, constant inflammation that never fully switches off. Chronic inflammation doesn't just attack one system. It damages your arteries and creates an environment where abnormal cell growth becomes more likely. I've seen both outcomes on the operating table, more often than I'd like to count. The 5 foods we'll discuss all share one thing in common. When reheated, they produce compounds your body struggles to neutralize after 60. And day after day, meal after meal, those compounds add up. Let's start with the one that's probably in your kitchen right now. Fried food. French fries, fried chicken, anything cooked in vegetable oil. Sunflower, corn, soybean. You probably know this isn't health food, but here's what you likely don't know. The danger isn't in eating it the first time. The danger is in reheating it. When you heat vegetable oils again the next day, they go through a chemical breakdown. The oil oxidizes, and in that process, it releases compounds called aldehydes. The same compounds found in cigarette smoke. I'm not being dramatic. That's the chemistry. So what do aldehydes do inside your body? First, they go after your arterial walls. They trigger oxidative stress. Oxidative stress damages the cells lining your blood vessels. Over time, inflammation. The walls thicken, stiffen, and lose elasticity. For someone over 60 whose arteries are already less elastic, this is a serious problem, one of the fastest routes to high blood pressure. But that's only half the story. Aldehydes are also free radicals. And free radicals do something particularly alarming. They damage DNA. They attack the genetic material inside your cells. Most of the time, your body repairs that damage. But after 60, repair slows down. Some mutations slip through. And when enough mutations accumulate in the wrong place, that's how serious cellular illness begins. Do you have to stop eating fried food forever? No, but reheating it, especially in the microwave or with more oil, that's where the damage multiplies. If you have leftover fried food, oven or air fryer at moderate temperature, no added oil, or better yet, eat it cold. Now this next one shocks people every time because leafy greens are supposed to be the healthiest foods you can eat. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard, and they are healthy when prepared correctly. The problem starts after cooking. Raw spinach and kale contain nitrates, naturally occurring compounds, largely harmless in their original form. Your body processes them without much trouble. But here's what happens when you cook leafy greens and let them sit. Bacteria begin converting those nitrates into nitrites. That conversion happens at room temperature, and it accelerates when greens are stored improperly. So far, still manageable. The real problem comes when you reheat them. Heat causes nitrites to react with proteins in the food, producing nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are classified as probable human carcinogens by the World Health Organization, linked to stomach, esophageal, and colon cancers. But cancer risk isn't the only issue. Nitrosamines also trigger vascular inflammation, damaging the endothelium, the lining of your blood vessels. When the endothelium is inflamed, arteries lose their ability to regulate blood flow. Blood pressure becomes harder to control. Clot risk goes up. For someone over 60, cancer risk plus cardiovascular inflammation at the same time. That combination is a genuine concern. The frustrating part, you're trying to do the right thing. You cook spinach because it's nutritious. You're just reheating leftovers because it's convenient. So, here's the simple fix. Cook only as much leafy greens as you'll eat in one sitting. Leftovers go cold into a salad. Never reheat it. And one more thing, are you storing cooked greens at room temperature before the fridge? Even 1 hour accelerates the conversion most rapidly. Rice seems like the safest food in the world. Plain, simple, neutral. Billions of people eat it every day. And yet, reheated rice is responsible for more foodborne illness than almost any other staple food on the planet. Here's why. When you cook rice, you kill most bacteria. But one particular bacterium plays by very different rules. Its spores survive boiling. The spores survive cooking. They go dormant in the heat, then the rice cools down, and those spores wake up and multiply fast. You think, fine, I'll reheat the rice thoroughly. That will kill the bacteria. And you're right, reheating kills the bacteria, but it does not destroy the toxins they've already produced. Bacillus cereus releases heat-resistant toxins as it multiplies. You can heat that rice until it's steaming hot, and those toxins are still there, still active, still ready to cause damage. In the short term, nausea, vomiting, discomfort, unpleasant but survivable. But here's what nobody talks about. Repeated exposure to these low-level toxins 2, 3, 4 times a week over months and years creates chronic intestinal inflammation. And chronic intestinal inflammation is not a local problem. It spreads. The gut and the heart are connected through multiple pathways. Inflammatory signals travel through the bloodstream. Changes in gut bacteria directly affect cholesterol metabolism and blood pressure regulation. I've had patients with unexplained cardiovascular inflammation, normal weight, non-smokers, reasonable diet, no obvious cause. And when we dug into their daily habits, one thing kept coming up. Rice, reheated rice. Every day, sometimes twice a day. After 60, your gut lining is thinner and more permeable. Toxins and inflammatory signals get through more easily. The barrier is simply not as strong. The fix is straightforward, but timing matters. Cool rice rapidly. Get it into the refrigerator within 1 hour of cooking. Store it no more than 24 hours. When you reheat, do it once and only once. Never reheat rice a second time. How long does your cooked rice usually sit before going in the fridge? 1 hour, 3 hours? Keep that number in mind. Chicken is one of the most popular proteins for people over 60. Lean, versatile, easy to cook in bulk, and used throughout the week. The problem is that chicken and microwave reheating are a genuinely dangerous combination, and most people have no idea why. Microwaves heat food by exciting water molecules, but not evenly. The waves penetrate food in irregular patterns. They create what food scientists call cold zones, areas inside the food that receive little or no heat during the reheating process. You can't see them. The outside of your chicken looks perfectly hot. Steam is rising. But inside those cold zones never reach the safe temperature. That is the temperature range where bacteria thrive. Salmonella, Campylobacter, Listeria, these are the main culprits in reheated chicken. Campylobacter can survive temperatures that kill most other pathogens. And Listeria is especially concerning for people over 60. Immunity weakens with age. 1 episode of food poisoning. That's a bad day. Painful, exhausting, which your body recovers. The real danger is the pattern. Repeated low-level bacterial exposure. Your body fights off just enough, but not enough to prevent systemic inflammation. Every time your immune system mobilizes to deal with bacterial toxins, it releases inflammatory cytokines into the bloodstream, small amounts each time. But if this happens regularly, those cytokines circulate continuously. And what does that do to your cardiovascular system? They damage arterial walls. They promote plaque formation. They make blood more prone to clotting. I see these results regularly and slow progressive arterial damage. So what do you do with leftover chicken? The microwave is your worst option. Oven with foil at moderate temperature or eat it cold. If you must use the microwave, cut the chicken into small pieces first. Let it rest 2 full minutes after heating. Significantly safer. Potatoes might be the most misunderstood food on this list because the danger isn't just in reheating them. It's in what reheating does to 2 completely separate processes happening inside that potato at the same time. Let's start with acrylamide. When starchy foods are cooked at high temperatures, a chemical reaction occurs between sugars and an amino acid. The result is acrylamide. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies it as a probable human carcinogen linked to kidney and other cancers. Here's the critical part. First time you cook a potato, acrylamide forms. When you reheat it, more forms on top of what's already there. You're compounding exposure with every reheating cycle. After 60, your body detoxifies acrylamide less efficiently. The same amount does more damage. That's the cancer side. Now let's talk about the heart side. Fresh cooked potatoes that have been cooled contain something called resistant starch. Resistant starch acts like dietary fiber, feeding healthy gut bacteria and slowing the release of glucose into your bloodstream. Blood sugar rises gradually. When you reheat that potato, the resistant starch converts back into regular starch. Regular starch digests rapidly. Your blood sugar spikes. Your pancreas has to produce a surge of insulin to compensate. For someone over 60 with any insulin resistance, this is genuinely damaging. Sharp, repeated blood sugar fluctuations cause oxidative stress in your vessel walls. They accelerate arterial stiffening, contribute directly to cardiovascular disease. One reheated potato, triggering both a carcinogen exposure and a cardiovascular stress response at the same time. That's the silent double threat. The practical solution: eat potatoes cold when possible. Cold potato salad with olive oil and herbs. Resistant starch stays intact. Blood sugar stays stable. If you need them warm, cook fresh ones. Low heat, short time, no added oil. Simple, effective. Better for your arteries and your cells. I want to step back for a moment. We've been talking about 5 individual foods, but here's what I really want you to understand. What happens when these foods work together against you over months and years? This is something I see from a very particular vantage point. When you've spent decades in an operating room, you develop a different relationship with time. I see the end results of decisions people made years earlier. The patient on my table didn't arrive there because of one bad meal. They arrived there because of a pattern. And chronic inflammation is that pattern. Every food we discussed today, reheated oils, nitrosamines, bacterial toxins, all feed the same underlying process: chronic low-level systemic inflammation. Here's what that looks like inside your body. Over time, your arterial walls develop microscopic damage. Your immune system sends inflammatory cells to repair that damage. Those cells accumulate. Plaque begins to form. The arteries narrow. Blood pressure rises. The heart has to work harder to push blood through vessels that are increasingly stiff. Meanwhile, your cells are under continuous oxidative stress. The more inflammation, the more mutations. And the more mutations, the higher the probability that one escapes detection and becomes something more serious. Heart disease and serious cellular illness are not separate problems with separate causes. In many cases, they share the same root: chronic inflammation. After 60, the timeline compresses. The body has less reserve. What took 20 years to develop at 40 might take 10 at 65. Does that sound alarming? It's meant to be honest, not frightening. Because the body's capacity for recovery is genuinely remarkable. Inflammation is reversible. Arterial function can improve. These processes can be slowed, sometimes stopped, with consistent, simple changes. Let me make this as practical as possible because information without action is just anxiety. Here are the 5 swaps: fry food, oven or air fryer, no added oil, or eat it cold. The goal is to stop further oxidation of oil that's already in the food. Leafy greens, cook only what you'll eat immediately. Leftovers go cold. Salads, grain bowls, refrigerated within 30 minutes of cooling. Rice, cool it fast. Refrigerate within 1 hour. Use within 24 hours. Reheat once and once only. Better yet, cook smaller portions. Chicken, ditch the microwave. Oven with foil at moderate temperature, or eat it cold. No cold zones, no bacterial risk. Potatoes. Embrace the cold potato. Cold potato salad dressed with olive oil and lemon is one of the smartest meals you can eat after 60. None of these changes require you to stop eating foods you enjoy. They just require you to think differently about timing and temperature. And these changes stack. Each swap reduces your inflammatory load a little. All 5 together reduces significantly over weeks and months. That reduction shows up in ways you can actually feel. Better energy, more stable blood pressure, improved digestion. Your kitchen habits after 60 are one of the most powerful tools you have for protecting your heart. That's what the evidence shows. I want to tell you something I don't say lightly. I've stood at an operating table with a person's chest open in front of me more times than I can count. And in those moments when you're looking directly at someone's heart, working to repair damage that took decades to accumulate, you develop a very specific perspective on what matters. You stop being abstract about health. You stop talking about risk percentages because you're not looking at a statistic. You're looking at a 68-year-old grandfather whose arteries are so inflamed, barely functional, rigid, calcified, like garden holes left in the sun for 20 years. And the question that never leaves you, how much of this was preventable? The honest answer, based on everything I've seen and everything the research tells us, a significant portion of it. Not all of it. Genetics matter. Age matters. There are factors outside anyone's control. I'm not here to assign blame, but chronic inflammation is largely preventable. And chronic inflammation is at the root of a staggering proportion of the cardiovascular disease and cellular illness I've seen. What shocks me most? Not the obvious cases, it's the patients who did almost everything right. Exercise, watch their weight, cooked at home, and still their arteries show signs of chronic inflammatory damage. Same patterns every time when we dug into their daily habits. Reheated oils twice a day, spinach microwaved every morning, rice on the counter overnight, chicken in the microwave 3 times a week without a second thought. None of these things feel dangerous. That's the entire problem. They feel like normal, sensible, even responsible behavior. But inside the body after 60, these repeated chemical insults accumulate. The inflammation never fully resolves. The DNA repair system starts missing things. This is the conversation I wish I could have with every patient before they end up on my table, before the procedure, before all the options get smaller. You still have all your options. You're watching this video, which means you're paying attention to your health. You're asking the right questions. The changes we've discussed today are 5 simple swaps in how you handle specific foods within your reach right now. Today, no prescription needed. The body you're living in after 60 has carried you a long way, and it has more capacity to heal than most people give it credit for. It needs you to stop adding fuel to a fire that's already burning quietly in the background. Reduce the inflammation, protect the arteries, give your cells a fighting chance. That's not medical poetry. That's what 30 years in the operating room teaches you. Which of these 5 foods surprised you most? Leave your answer in the comments below. I genuinely want to know if someone you care about is over 60 and reheating these foods. Share this video with them, not to alarm them, to give them what you now have. If this was useful to you, hit the like button. It helps more people over 60 find this information and subscribe for more honest conversations about your health. Take care of your heart. Take care of yourselves. The kitchen is one of the most powerful places in your life. Now you know how to use it. Everything shared here is general information, not personal medical advice. Your situation is unique. Before making changes, please talk to your own doctor.